Okay. Sorry. Let's start with the introduction again. Mr. Evans Agnan, are you here?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm program director, Mr. Evans, calling from California.
Okay. And we have Mrs. Akudo from UAE. Ms. Akudo, can you say hello to the class? Okay, let's continue. Mrs. Mary, are you here too?
Yes, I'm here. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, good morning.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, in today's meeting, I am Mr. Humphrey. In today's webinar, we are going to discuss about international medical laboratory practice. And you know that most of the time, most people don't really know what is required of them to practice, even where they currently reside. So, and in this webinar, we want to try to find out from different regions of the world what is obtainable. And even if you want to migrate or if you want to keep staying where you are, like in Nigeria or Ghana or anywhere, what are the skills required of you? Um, Sometimes we need to sharpen our skills and also try to have that knowledge that is required of us to make the best of us in the industry. So, Mr. Evans, okay, the speakers we in the introduction we're supposed to have speakers from Australia, the Middle East, Africa, the Americas, and Asia. So we have done the introduction, and then we are going to straight to question number one. And I would like to ask Mr. Evans from California, USA, what are you currently doing in your new country of residence? We want to hear from you.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Evans Biomedics Learning. I am Mr. Evans Agunane. I'm calling from the state of California in the United States. I'm currently working as a medical lab scientist. Actually, I've been working as a medical lab scientist for almost 20 years now.
Mr. Evans, we can't hear you.
Oh, you can hear me?
We can hear you now.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, I said I'm working currently as a medical lab scientist in the state of California for almost 20 years now. As you know, California is one of the states in the United States. So does that answer your question?
Yes. Okay. I thought you could add a little more to that.
Okay. Working as a lab scientist in the state of California requires your taking the board exam, the national board exam, the ASCP or ASCPI, and qualifying. And with the license in your hand, you can actually find a job in California and many states. As you all know, California, each of the states function like a mini country within the state. So, I mean, in the United States, each of the states function like a mini country, and they determine which license that they use or they can accept for you to practice. California accepts the national board, which is ASCP or ASCPI, like most of the states. Let's say about 80% of the states accept ASCP or ASCPI. Some other states that do not accept the ASCPI will actually accept ASCPI or ASCP depending on when you passed the state board. Most of the state board is mainly state laws, which you may have to write for them to now exchange your license and now give you their own style kind of license. Many times it's an ego issue. The ASCPI or ASCP remains the major licensing board that can license you to practice in almost every state in the United States of America.
Okay, thank you for that. I think we have a representative from Canada. Mrs. Gloria, is she there? From Canada. Sivans, I think, can you, is she there? Let me know if she's around so that we can hear from her.
I don't think she's on the platform yet, but if you don't mind, I can still say one or two things about Canadian licensing. Canada is a little different from United States. For scientists trying to move to Canada as a country, they practically love you to write their own exams. So most medical lab scientists moving into Canada will move in there as a student, either their masters or going there to complete their bachelor's. So when you graduate in Canada, they make it easier for you to get their licensing, their license or their board exam or whatever. They actually do not accept the certification from United States or any part of the world. They prefer you going to school in Canada or having some form of education in Canada and passing their own board exam. That is the way Canada has their system set up. So most lab scientists going to Canada will preferably get in there as students. When you get in there as students of medical lab science, you are sure to easily graduate and write their board exam. But if you don't, they made it almost impossible for you to bring a transcript and be certified to write their board exam. Most people who went to Canada that I know have to actually leave the profession or go back to school to practice. A lot of them who are there as lecturers. I don't know anybody to prove me wrong, but that is the way I see Canada operates their licensing board. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sir Evans, for the exposition. Mrs. Egumeri, can we hear from you in the Nigerian perspective? I think after that, we'll be hearing from some of our candidates from Ghana. Mrs. Mary, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mary Chinyere. By profession, I'm a medical laboratory scientist. And just as the program coordinator said, I've been practicing for some years now. Well, for Nigeria here, we don't really have more.
We can't hear you.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay. I said I'm by name Egumeri Chinyere, and I'm a medical laboratory scientist. And I've been practicing for some years now. Like other countries too. For Nigeria here, you just need to have the certificate, as in from your bachelor degree as a medical laboratory scientist. So by then you are licensed to practice. But for outside the country, there are not too much rules, like just the way Mr. Evans has stated, like the Canadian ones, you need to take their exam and write. It's not actually like that in Nigeria. So there are not much protocol here. Once you are licensed, you need to, once you are licensed by the council, you go on to practice. So there's not really much that is being required of you, but you must be certified by the council before you are allowed to practice. Thank you.
Okay, if I may really understand what Mrs. Mary is saying, because her network was not too good. She's saying that there is not much required of medical lab scientists who graduated from Nigeria and also practicing in Nigeria, provided you pass the exams in Nigeria and the council and you are licensed, so you don't need further certification to practice in Nigeria. Okay, thank you, Mrs. Mary, for that. Do we have anybody from Ghana here? Yeah. And the question, the next question is, what skills do you believe are required of you as an international medical laboratory scientist? Sir Evans, can you give us that?
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me. Can you all hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Just like in any other country now, or because just like in any other profession worldwide, the major skill you really need is your knowledge of computer. Your knowledge of computer, I mean, you don't really have to go deep into programming or something much more or this thing. But then, as you all know, most of our basic operations now are being done with the use of computer. So if you have to work in any part of the world, especially United States, you must be proficient in your computer skills. At least basic typing and knowing your commands are the major skills that you really need to understand. Each of the computer screen or each of the laboratories probably will have their own operating system that you have to learn when they hire you. But if you really know the basic queries and on a computer screen, or how to look at the screen and figure out, because most of those computers are user friendly. If you are not naive and you look at the screen, you can understand where you can look up, let's say, issues like pending. You want to know number of tests that are waiting for you. You want to look at results that are done or verify the tests that are ready for you to now verify, so that the results can go to the doctors and that kind of stuff. So it's always also good to have knowledge of a laboratory information system, which is a kind of a common information system used in the laboratory setting while there in Nigeria, which is a part of computer. It's just a matter of finding who has or where you can have a little knowledge of laboratory information system. Let me make it clearer. Each equipment has its own program. let's say you are using a Beckman LH500 that runs your full block count. You have to get, how do I call it? You have to have a little knowledge of the computer that comes with the machine, which is not too complex. And also, you have to learn a knowledge. You have to have some knowledge of the program that accepts the result from the equipment. So there are two computer systems we are talking about now. One is the operating system of the machine that you are using, and the other one is a laboratory information system, the one that accepts the result from the machine, because it's on your laboratory information system that you have your normal range, because the people that made the equipment can make the equipment and have it set up. Then within your locality, you have your normal range. So when your result crosses over here, this is where you now say, I accept this result from this machine, or I do not accept this result for this machine. And I need it to be done manually, or I need it to be done a different way. Let's say your patients with, let's say, cancer, many a time their white blood cells will look, your machine cannot actually, will not understand what they look like because of the kind of treatments they are going through. It has altered a lot of things. So it was in your laboratory information system that you look at it again and now say, this count does not look right. This result is not acceptable. So probably you will not accept the results in the lab information system. But then the operating system in the computer of the machine that you're using to run it will give you a result, which you will look at first and then decide to, try to run the test manually to compare it with what the operating system gave you before you now go to your laboratory information system, whereby you can accept the results into the system. So what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say here is that basic knowledge or a little in-depth knowledge of laboratory computers is necessary. There are 1001 machines, but the softwares for running all the machines all look alike. Finding a place that has an automated machine and a lab information system, which is a lab information program, is necessary for you to understand working outside Nigeria. I don't know if I made myself clear.
Yes, thank you. But I think the network was stopping or blocking a lot of information from here. Maybe in 2 sentences, you can summarize what you just say so that it will be clear.
Okay. What I'm just saying is that it is necessary for a migrant laboratory scientist migrating to another country to find where there are automated systems and have some knowledge of the operating system of the analyzer. Also, they need to have knowledge of laboratory information system, which is the second kind of system that allows them to accept or reject a particular result. So the laboratory information system allows you to accept or reject a result, and operating system of the instrument will allow you to operate the machine and come up with a result, which can either be accepted or rejected by the laboratory information system. So you have to learn two systems there. The operating system of the analyzer and laboratory information system. That is the way it works in most of the developed countries.
Okay, thank you for that information. I know that, when Mrs. Mary spoke about Nigeria, most people should also know that Nigeria, some foreigners are also working in Nigeria. So it's like Nigeria is an international job. Working in Nigeria is like an international job for them. And someone can also move to Ghana or Cameroon or South Africa to work. It means international. So the information is very critical for everyone. So I know, Mrs. Egu Mary, you work in an international organization where open heart surgeries are done, and the team comes from different parts of the world. So you're already in an international environment. So can you give us some exposition on your practice and the skills you have acquired or you're acquiring to make sure that those that we are operated on are alive? There are a lot of things that are required in that environment, because it's not easy to open up the heart, stop it, work on it, and bring it back to life. And the work of the medical laboratory scientists, which you are very much in charge, is instrumental to keeping people alive. So, Mrs. Egu, can you just give us, like in this question, what skills do you believe are required of you as an international medical laboratory scientist? Because you are already working in an international environment, despite it's in Nigeria.
Thank you again. And I still remain Egumere Chinyere. Well, just like Mr. Evans have said, he has really said it all. For you to work, or like the years I've worked here with this organization or this institution, there are some basic skills you need to acquire, not just only knowing the operating system of the analyzer, but at least you need to know your pre-analytical, you have to have your pre-analytical skill, the mode you collect your samples, the container you need to add, put them, all those things are necessary so that you won't start the mistake from there. That is the pre-analytical error. Apart from that too, you need to also have this operating system of the analyzer. You need to have the knowledge of it to avoid any form of analytical error. That is the analytical stage. Apart from that, too, just like Mr. Evans said, you need to have the knowledge of this laboratory information. If you don't know that this particular result is supposed to be with this within these reference ranges, maybe the lower limit or the upper reference limit, if you don't know them, whatever thing you key in into the system, you still get it back. That is garbage in, garbage out. So it's necessary you know the reference ranges so that whatever results you get, you need to look at them if they valid or not. And that calls for a kind of quality control. So if you don't know how to calibrate your machines, you don't know how to carry on quality control, you'll just be releasing any kind of result. And that is why, like here, we are not in a hurry to release result. Once you obtain any form of result from the machine, you need to look at them. Does it tally again with the clinical diagnosis? Does it tally with what is being requested? Is it really okay or not? That's some ones you have, you need to recollect sample from the patient to be sure of the results you're releasing. At times, we even do recollect and do maybe 2-3 times and be sure of what we are doing before we release it. So these basic skills are necessary. You need to know the primary things during sample collection, key it in so that, and then proper labeling so that you won't carry another person's result and give to another person, or releasing another person's result to the wrong person. So you need to know the basic things. In terms of pipetting, even if we are in the era of automation, you still have some human skills before the actual result will be out. The pipetting, sample collection, pipetting, all those things. So you need to know them very well to avoid error from this stage. Then during the analytical period, how do you load your samples? How do you understand the machine? That is understanding the analyzer generally. And aside that, once the result is out, that is the post-analytical stage. What are you doing? How is the result being relayed to the physician? How do you release your result? What type of things? I think all these things you need to look at them and then avoid some mistake. And if the result is now overwhelming, that at times the machine, some of them will tell you that out of readable mood. So that is when your knowledge of the manual method comes in. So if you don't have that manual method and knowledge, it will be difficult for you. That means if the machine is not able to release result, you just go and tell your physician that the result is not available. So you need to have the basic knowledge, like the manual one to, then coming to the machine, you need to understand the mode operandi of the machine and then how you can easily interrelate the results, the automated one, and then the manual one. So that is what we've actually been doing. So when patient comes in, we try to identify the patient, try to identify both the name, normal sample collection and everything. Then during the analytical stage, we try to know whatever result that comes out, is it actually how it's supposed to be? Even if it doesn't go along with the clinical diagnosis, because at times some of the clinical diagnosis will be queried. So it's either it's ruled in or it's ruled out. So, but once as a medical laboratory scientist, you should be sure that whatever thing you are dishing out, that even if it should be done elsewhere, the difference shouldn't be that much, like maybe 0.1% difference or thereabout, because if it's not the same sample that is being used and it's not the same time that is being used, you are not certain to get exact results. So all these things are really, all these basic skills are really necessary, and it has really been helping us. When I talk of maybe repeating results, when you have some abnormal result or result that you're not so satisfied with, I cite, for instance, maybe during analysis of electrolyte, for instance, you are having a kind of high potassium level. So I don't just release the result because I've
Hello, we lost you. Hello?
Oh yeah, I can continue from and say a little bit of things until you're able to get her on track. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, just to throw more light on an area that I didn't expatiate on, like she said, on sample collection. It is a very vital issue that you understand tests and their different containers. It's all the same. The color codes are the same all over the world. Like if we collect samples, still we have some containers coming from China that you have some colors that you really need to read and see what the anticoagulant is for you to know. But then on the regular color codes that is international, that you know, let's say you are trying to do your full blood count. What the anticoagulant is EDTA, and the container, the cover should be purple. And you're trying to do your pro time or your coagulation, the container should be blue, which is citrate. Imagine in a situation when she said the pre-analytical phase, you should understand your pre-analytical phase and know it so that you don't make a mistake that will translate to a wrong result. Assuming instead of loading, if you want to do your full block count, you load your EDTA. You're supposed to load your EDTA to the analyzer, which is ordinarily, if you're doing the manual way, it's still the same EDTA container. That's blood collected in that purple top, right? So if you now put a blood collected in blue top, into that machine analyzer, it will accept it. It will run the test, but the result is still it's not going to be normal. It's because it has a dilution factor in it, which if you are doing it, you should, apply a factor. The machine does not know that you loaded the citrate container, the blue top on it. It will run it and give you a test. They give you a result, which you eventually result out. But then, if you have your basic knowledge as a lab scientist, where you are trained, you will know that, if this machine is for full block counts, then I have to load the EDTA containers, that's the purple top containers, on this machine. And if the samples are for coagulation, I will take it to the coagulation machine. So having a pre-analytical knowledge is very vital. Something as simple as which test goes to which machine, or what do you use this for, or this particular tube, is this supposed to be for full block count, or is this supposed to be for coagulation, or is this supposed to be for chemistry? Or even among the chemistry, you have some tests that are done under serum, which is when you the water part of the blood, when the blood is clotted, and the one that is done in plasma, which is the one that is not clotted, the watery part of the blood when the blood is not clotted. So having your pre-analytical knowledge, as you mentioned, on those things, basically in Nigeria, is very important. Another important thing also is that, you see, basic knowledge of every test. Those machines are working according to the basic manual principles that we've all learned in school. That's the way they are working from. So knowing the basic, what is actually going on, is what matters. Let's say now you are trying to run for people that have a liver issue. You have total bilirubin, you have a conjugated bilirubin. If your conjugated comes out higher than, let's say, your conjugated bilirubin is 10, while your total is 5, that's a flag that your result is wrong, because conjugated bilirubin is part of total bilirubin. So total bilirubin will always be higher than conjugated bilirubin. So having pre-analytical knowledge, having a good knowledge of basic principle of what you are doing is very important. And sometimes the machine cannot do what you want it to do. It will refer you back. That's so if you know, you look at the operating system, you say, oh, this result cannot be good, cannot be right. You will not go to your lab information system and release it, because once you release it, the doctors can see it. It's time for you to look at the result on your operating system, pull out the sample, you probably go and run it manually so you can get a result from it. It doesn't happen all the time, but when it happens, you are expected to know not to release a wrong result, because if somebody gets killed on that from that result, because they all depend on your result, you are actually in trouble for it. So knowing what is actually happening in the machine, or what the machine is doing right, when it's doing right or wrong, is very necessary. Knowing what to feed the machine is very necessary. That's why she said, garbage in, garbage out. If you put the wrong thing in, the machine will give you the wrong thing. If you put the right thing, you bring out the right thing. So like I said, if you put in the wrong specimen container, the machine will give you a wrong result. If you put in the right specimen container, the machine will give you the right result. Knowledge of calibration, as she said, is very important. You don't actually need to know how to calibrate a machine that you haven't seen before. What I mean is that, let's say you haven't seen all those automated machines, but you need to know what is calibration. What does calibration do? Can you all hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. What does calibration do? Yes. What does calibration do? Calibration is trying to assign values to a particular assay. Let's say I'm trying to check the amount of do I say electrolyte in my blood? For me to calibrate that, I can now say, okay, I put in water in that machine. Water must read 0 because there's no electrolytes in it. Then I put a particular solution. It must read 5. Then I put another solution. It must read 10. Then from there, I know that I have established that when I have something that doesn't have anything like water, the result should show 0. Then after the calibration, you now run your quality control. Quality control is that they already know the values. So when I put the value now, I better get between 2 and, let me say I put my quality control is from a rabbit. I better get between 2 and 3 as my value. So if I get 2 and 3 as my value, then I have, my machine is working right. You see the way I'm checking how my machine is working. So calibration helps to plot a graph, while quality control now says, okay, within this range, you already know what you should expect in quality control. Then quality control will now tell you if you are in or out. But if I'm supposed to be getting between 2 and 3, and I get a result of 7 in my quality control, my machine is still working, right? But every result coming out of that machine is likely going to be very, very wrong because it did not pass quality control. And probably the answer to the machine will be, the situation is go back to calibration. Calibrate, make sure that your 0 is your 0. Your 20 is your 20. That's if I put water, I get a 0 point. If I put water and I get 7 or 2 or 3, that means the machine is not working right. But the machine is working if you are looking at it. So having a knowledge of what calibration is much more important than knowing how to calibrate. Because you can calibrate and they give you a wrong result and you'll accept it and all your tests for the day will be wrong. Everything, I mean, it works on the same principle that we are being taught in school. Calibration. We learned it as theory. What does calibration do? Quality control. What does quality control do? So all these things are things we should pay attention to, learn it in the country where we are coming from. So when it's now applied in different scenarios, whether automated or manual, we actually know the background of what the machine is doing, knowing that it will put you in a better picture to grasp whatever system that you are being introduced to anywhere on the planet. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Evans. I think Mrs. Egumeri is back. In terms of blood banking, because most surgeries need blood, and then we talk about hematology coagulation. I think there should be high level of practicing skills in this area. Mrs. Mary, can you just give us some words on this? How you handle some of these blood issues when you have a patient that is being operated on. So it's very vital. Hello, Mrs. Mary, are you there? Okay, maybe her network is still.
Have you tried Mrs. Surge? Is she on the platform?
Miss Soji, I can't see her on the platform. Okay, what about Mrs. Gloria from California? She sent anything to you, or is she on the? Is she still coming?
Oh no, she sent something across. She's working presently, so she sent all her information that is needed. I can take the question you said on blood banking. I'm a huge blood banker when it comes to the practice in the international arena. Let me tell you, the blood banking doesn't really change much in the international arena because a lot of places, like where I work, they still prefer the traditional method. There's a lot of automated system in the blood banking machines, but being something very critical, and people have to be fed with blood or with something that could either save or kill them in minutes. So the place I work actually prefers the manual method of blood banking that we actually do in Nigeria. But though they have more elaborate reagents, they do more elaborate tests, but they still do the tube, view it with eyes and make sure there's no coagulation or there's no clotting while, observing their reactions efficiently on blood banking. So having a basic knowledge of blood bank as we have it in Nigeria is is very, very vital. You are not going to miss anything coming abroad. Um, Once you can blood bank in Nigeria, you can blood bank any other place.
Okay, at this point, can we have any contribution from people from Ghana or anybody from the audience? What can you say about our discussion so far?
Okay, good morning. Can I say something?
Go ahead.
You're welcome.
Okay, my name is Eze Samson, a medical laboratory scientist practicing in Nigeria. Although I have some other certifications, licensed to practice in Ireland and UK. However, I want to commend what our coordinator has already said, Scientist Evans. What he said is actually the truth. But I just have a little addition to what he said. Actually, there are guidelines to this international practice, international guidelines. And then what we are discussing are the skills that will enable us practice in these international settings. And then I believe that for us to even be discussing these skills, we already have the basic skill as a medical laboratory scientist, post-training or post-graduation. Okay, now when we talk about these skills, I will contribute to say that the most important skill to enable we in the African region to practice internationally is the quality management system, the 12 quality system essentials, because these are the things that are unique or that are common everywhere around the world. The International Standard Organization, ISO 15189, 2012, and then the currently reviewed ISO 15189, 2022, provided these guidelines from the point of pre-analytical to post-analytical, and even offering advisory services to our patients. And you also know that the core value of what we do is to provide a result that is accurate, that is precise, that is repeatable, and that is reliable. So all we do in totality is to make sure that the results we generate are internationally accurate and reliable. So I believe that each and every one of us within the African region should develop ourselves in this laboratory QMS skills, and then have an in-depth knowledge of ISO 15189, which is a skill that will enable you, whatever our boss, Mr. Evans, said that is done in California, you will find out that if you have this basic in-depth knowledge of ISO 15189, it falls within, right from the point of collecting your sample to the point of dispatching your result. Okay, now another skill that is very vital, in my own opinion, is pre-analytical skill when you talk of phlebotomy. Because when you go to the laboratory quality management system or the 12 QSE, you find out that the error that arises from the lab as a result of being unskilled majorly comes from wrong pre-analytical errors. That is wrong sample collection. So when we in this our African region or in Nigeria train ourselves on phlebotomy, it is not something that you have to, it's something that you can just do on your own. There are free phlebotomy courses, even in Allison. You know, we train ourselves on these essential skills to be able to say, okay, that we have been able to master the act of phlebotomy as well as most of the nitty-gritties involved in pre-analytical before we even talk about the skills we need in the analytical. Okay, and then I also want to contribute that if you have mastered the art of phlebotomy and every other sample collection skills you need, okay, we should also focus more on quality control in the analytical process. Any medical laboratory scientist that knows how to do the test or have the basic skills, but you don't have the skill of quality controlling, then it's as good as whatever the international standard said, you're not following it. And I doubt your ability to practice internationally. You have to be able to know how to quality control, both quantitative and qualitative quality controlling. By quality controlling, I mean not just being able to know whether your calibration passed or not, which is very vital, or being able to know what the calibration is, but application of this quality controlling. So I believe that a major skills that will enhance us in this a practice internationally is having, especially when it comes to chemistry, because I'm a clinical chemist. For most of us that are clinical chemists, you should have the basic skill of reading Levy-Jennings charts and Westgard rules. Because everywhere in the world, this is what we say, that you are a good laboratory practice because you follow this international standard of knowing what Levy-Jennings chart is and knowing what Westgard rules are and knowing how to apply them to be able to ensure that the result I release in my facility in Nigeria is the result Mr. Evans will get in his facility in California. I don't know if you guys can hear me.
Yes,
Very
yeah,
well, loud and clear,
very
loud
well.
and clear.
Okay, so in essence, what I'm saying is that these are the basic skills, because knowing the sample containers, what I believe that these are already the trainings we know, because that is even what qualified us to be a medical laboratory scientist in the first place. Now, the final contribution I want to make on this particular section is also having a basic knowledge on laboratory instrumentation and application. Regardless of wherever you're working, manual is still the gold standard. However, automation is rapidly taking over everywhere. Okay, so we should have the basic knowledge of these instruments. The thing is, if you have a basic knowledge of how to use Sysmex or how to use DMind or how to use Mindray, I can bet you that you can use most of every other hematology analyzers. The same thing with chemistry. If you have a basic knowledge on how to use Cobas, how to use PKL, how to use Selectra, I can bet you can use most other softwares in other chemistry analyzers. So integrating in our skills the ability to maneuver these applications in these machines will also be an integral part of meeting these international standards. And then again, even if you're working in a facility where you don't have these laboratory information systems, you can read it. You can read it up. Like in where I worked earlier, we have an electronic medical records where anything is like an LIS or LIMS, where the result coming out from the machine, even the LIS also covers pre-analytical, because even from the point of sample request, it is recorded on the LIS. To the point of running the analysis, the result comes from the machine down to the LIS, even to the result dispatch, which is where computer knowledge comes in. So you have the skill to maneuver this laboratory, even if you don't have it in your facility, you read it up on how to maneuver this emergency medical records or laboratory information management system. So I believe that with these skills, we'll be able to actually say that, yes, take us anywhere, we can actually do the job. This is in addition to what our boss, Mr. Scientist Evans, have said. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much, Mr. Eze Samson Chibueze. You really gave us a lot. And without this webinar, we will not be knowing that most of our scientists in Nigeria have already acquired some international certifications. And, it's very interesting to know that wherever you want to work, you make sure that you are putting up the international standard. And like you said, whatever results we get in Nigeria here is the same thing someone in California, someone in Ghana, someone in South Africa will get. And we need the basic skills in addition to computer skills. But the gold standard remains what we are taught in school. I hope I'm clear, Mr. Eze.
Yes, yes, you are clear, sir.
Okay. Thanks so much. I don't know whether there's any other person, any contribution from any other person from this platform. I can see most participants from Ghana and other parts of Africa and world. Is there any contribution we want to hear from you?
Yeah, good morning. Speaking from the other side of the world, Ghana. I am Chromizic, medical laboratory scientist. Unfortunately, the time that the webinar said we were to join the program, I thought it was 10 a.m. But not knowing, when I joined around 9:56, the program was still ongoing. So I don't know when it started, and I got to enjoy the session of our dear the woman who spoke, who was talking about the specialty, and unfortunately her line dropped off, and Mr. Evans continued. From Ghana, we from this side, we are facing a bit of challenges, not in terms of the personnel training, but with regards to policies. We are facing those challenges because as I speak to you, in a nation called Ghana, we don't have medical laboratory practicing policies approved by the parliament. We have the leaders have drawn a program, we have sent it to parliament. Then the then time Minister of Health and left with the implementation. The policy is still sitting in parliament waiting for implementation. We are being sabotaged by some of our colleagues that we work with in the facility, most especially the medical doctors. I don't know where that assumption is coming from. We got to a time, even in Ghana, they were trying to even be the heads of the various laboratories, most especially the teaching hospitals and the regional hospitals. So we are having that challenge. Ghanaians, the professionals, medical laboratory professionals in Ghana, we are facing that challenge because of the policy that we don't have as I speak to you. But we as scientists, we are doing our best. We are not saying that because there is no policy backing us in terms of procurement, in terms of who is to do this, who is to do that. So we are not going to do what we have taught in school. We are doing our best. And as earlier has been said, we are also following the international standard operation procedures to also get reliable results for our cherished patients. So I should recommend this the leaders for organizing such program. We are also learning from the program that you time organized for us. And as time goes on, I think we will, and you give our best as scientists. So thank you very much, and I urge you to continue the organization at least if once every month, so that we also come here to learn from those of you practicing in outside Africa. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Isaac Nkrumah, for your speech, and thanks for joining. Do we have any other contributor? Any other contributor?
From this side, I would want to encourage Mr. Nkrumah I know, just to let you know that the fight you have in Ghana is also almost every other place. I think I knew when that fight was actually in Nigeria, where the medical doctors are trying to head the lab, and also here abroad, in the United States, they still made the doctors the head of pathology. Then I think we fought back and we have our own organization, we have our own leadership. It's like we have a parallel leadership that's in the lab. They have a pathologist, or each lab must have a pathologist as a head, and also have a lab scientist as a medical director. They sign off on our budget, but as I said, they don't regulate what we do from day to day on day-to-day basis and that kind of stuff. It's been a war. I mean, worldwide, the doctors trying to limit the growth of medical lab scientists in their field, or make sure that they will stay under their operations even when they don't know much about what we do in our area. Because ordinarily, a medical lab science program should be a master's program on its own, given the number of years that they are being trained and what they are required to know, mainly as a generalist, is much more than what other people have as masters and that kind of stuff. So as you try to, make sure that your government is doing the right thing, the one of the purposes of this forum is to bring everybody internationally under the same umbrella, improve the practice, standardize the practice, so that when you see a result from Ghana or a result from Nigeria, you are actually looking at the same thing. We try to make sure that medical lab scientists acquire the best knowledge that can allow them, operate anywhere around the world. So it's good a thing that I'm highly impressed by what Mr. Eze has said about the ISO 15189. Actually, I didn't go deep into most of those things because I didn't expect a lot of knowledge on that direction. But he shows that knowledge, there's no limit to knowledge. I mean, everybody has access to a lot of things. And also on the phlebotomy side of it, I know United States, drawing of blood and all the rest comes from another license they call the phlebotomy license, in as much as we should also know about it. But then lab scientists are not really made to draw blood, but the knowledge of the principle of what should be drawn and what is inside the tube must be known by the lab scientist. I'm really encouraged. So go ahead, Mr. Program Coordinator. I'm really impressed. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. I don't know if there is any other contributor so that we can move on to the next question. Okay. We are basically looking at the skills, and these skills, basic skills, computer skills, and all the skills that are required of us. So in as much as we acquire the basic skills from school, from training and every other thing, and automation skills, because equipment and instrument keep coming, the companies keep modifying the equipment, but that doesn't mean we shouldn't know the basics. We have to have the basic skills, the knowledge, and then try as much as possible to also to know the computer skills. Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next question. Question number 3. It says, what knowledge should medical laboratory scientists, such as those from Nigeria or Ghana, strive to acquire when transitioning to work internationally? What knowledge? Saivans,
Yes.
you worked in Nigeria before you transitioned to the US. And most people that are currently in Ghana or Nigeria may tomorrow or any time in their life find themselves any part of the world. So, what knowledge should medical laboratory scientists strive to acquire when transitioning to work internationally? And also, let's have in mind that working internationally doesn't mean maybe traveling out of your country. There are some labs that may be established in Nigeria or in Ghana, but their method of operation is international. So you may transition from working in the regulation that is being controlled by your government, but in that environment, the regulation is controlled internationally. So, Sir Evans, what do you have to say?
Oh, I said Mr. Eze he actually said the whole thing when he now brought up the ISO 15189, starting from pre-analytical, analytical, and the post-analytical phase of the testing. So coming up from Nigeria, from what you're saying, I say what knowledge you should acquire for an international practicing medical lab scientist. So if I may go back to what he said, having the pre-analytical by what we mean is that what you do before the sample comes to the lab or comes inside the lab for testing. Because as he said also, most of the dangerous mistakes are being made at this point. One, okay, like my lecturer or professor would say when I was when I was in Nigeria, he said the best part or the most important part of a laboratory testing is the sample identification. Sample identification, he means, is making sure that the sample for Mr. A is from Mr. A. Do you understand? The container for Mr. A is the right container. Another side of it, one might even look and say, oh yeah, it's Mr. A, and the sample is from Mr. A. But also there's another mistake people can make, because I've seen that mistake happen here. Somebody was drawing blood for chemistry and now found out not on the line that, oh, I'm also requiring full blood count. He now poured some of the blood from the chemistry tube into the full blood count tube. Mind you, each of them has the different anticoagulant in it. Or you pour from EDTA. Oh, I also have chemistry. He didn't know. He didn't want to call the patient back, so he poured some of the EDTA sample into chemistry tubing. So when they sent it into the lab, you run a test, assuming the one that was poured into the EDTA before, and from EDTA container, which is from full blood count container into chemistry container, you run it and the calcium is almost zero, because the EDTA removes calcium from the sample. So it is now known. That's when the scientists can know that, hey, something is wrong. There's no way sample calcium can be zero. Then you cannot trace it back. But what I'm trying to say is that mistakes that are usually made at the pre-analytical level is the ones that can be gruesome, that can easily cause a lot of damage. So a knowledge of what scientists such as can acquire in transitioning into the international arena, it also has to do with what he said about LJ charts, learning and trying to not only running your calibration and your quality control. How do you interpret it? The Westgard rules. At least we should know it theoretically. If you understand your rules of your quality control, then that's good enough. If you get there, no matter what system that you're giving, you understand that your LJ chart is this way. It's either you're in or out of control, or your Westgard, even when you're within control, but your Westgard rule does not support that your samples should be run at that point in time. That it does not support that machine is functioning properly, or it's not at the top it's not where it should be at that point, it's a good knowledge for you to know whether to continue to run a test or to stop running a test. Another thing, when I go by this question you wrote here, it's a knowledge of the medical lab scientist should acquire in transitioning internationally. It also has to do with time. The present time we have now, outside knowing the pre-analytical, the analytical, and the post-analytical phase, we also look at what is trending now. Now, most of the tests, we are having a lot of molecular based tests. When I say molecular, the most common one is like a PCR, polymerase chain reaction. Having an understanding of what a PCR does. PCR is also one of the technologies used for confirming COVID, and it's very, very much accurate, much more accurate than most other methods that are being used in the lab. So a lot of tests are going PCR. They are going PCR technology to make sure that the identification of organisms is done to the last. That they can say 99.9% that if I say this is this virus or this is this bacteria, I am very sure. I'm not guessing. I'm not saying there's a probability of 70-30 or that kind of stuff. So having a good knowledge of PCR or molecular biology for this present time is one of the things that we should, people coming into the Western world or who are trying to practice internationally should try to understand, or that should try to have a knowledge of PCR, or at least know the principle behind PCR. That's one of my thoughts at this point, and I feel that other people can contribute in this area, while I still remember other things that are required for lab scientists to know in this present age and time to practice as an international lab scientist. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Scientist Evans. I want to apologize because those that are supposed to join us from Australia because of time difference, those from Middle East because of time difference, and then I think they sent in some of their answers to the questions. I think in the course of this, Sir Evans will give us some of their inputs from their answers. So I don't know if there's anybody who wants to contribute to this particular question so that we can move on to the next one.
Okay. Can anybody hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. Sorry, it's still Samson. I was logged off at some point, but I just rejoined when our boss was talking about PCR as one of the skills that we should acquire. So, and I just wanted to make comments with regards to that. It's very, very vital. Okay, it's very, because molecular diagnosis is cutting across almost every section of our laboratory, ranging from hematology to microbiology to immunochemistry and the rest. So I believe that we scientists around this region should involve ourselves in basic clinical training outside our comfort zone, because I know most of the laboratories doesn't have these molecular stations. Even some of I was opportune to be among the team that set up molecular stations in Federal Medical Center Abuja here, Federal Medical Center Lokoja, and ABU Zaria, and some other teaching hospitals in Nigeria. So I know that some of our private facilities don't have this opportunity to be able to, involve themselves in molecular diagnosis. However, there are basic trainings we have to get for ourselves. You mustn't know everything about molecular biology, but basic trainings on extraction and amplification. You don't have to go to genetic sequencing. or even in-depth analysis of result interpretation. But being able to do either manual or automated extraction and then master mixing and then being able to amplify properly, it's going to help a lot. So it's just a comment I want to make on the molecular diagnosis. We
Okay, thank you.
should do personal training. There are plenty of information online.
Yes, you're
Hello.
on.
Okay, so please, there are basic information
Yes.
online everywhere where we can train ourselves on this molecular training. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Our scientist Egumeri, are you there?
Sorry, we had emergency, so I was attending to patient. I'm sorry about that.
Okay.
I'm here now.
Okay, okay. Okay, I don't know. Obagu Joy, do you have anything to say? Okay, in the absence of any further comments, let's move on to the next question, which is what academic preparations must intending migrants put in place now? Migrating in terms of being a medical laboratory scientist, maybe you are migrating from teaching hospital to a private hospital, from private hospital to your private clinic, or from Nigeria or Ghana to any part of the world. So what are the academic preparations you have to, you must put in place for you to achieve this? Because most times when we put up the nomenclature international migrants, we have in our mind, oh, traveling abroad or that, but forgetting that there are different areas that you can migrate to in terms of from teaching hospital to a private clinic, or from private clinic to your own laboratory, or you're moving totally from your country, from Nigeria to Ghana, or from Ghana to South Africa, or to UAE. So, Sir Evans, can you give us a exposition on the preparations you made to be where you are at this point in time? Thank you.
All right, thank you, everyone. I'm glad you expatiated on your question when you said migrants, and going further to define what you mean by migration in this aspect, or in this context. Well, I will split the question into two. Migrating from one operation to another operation within the same country, and also migrating from your country to outside country, or migrating from a local job or into an international job. Okay, so if you're migrating from one operation, let's say from government job to your personal operation, I think um, the one of the most important thing is for you to understand the cost implication of everything you're doing. I don't know how do I call this, and there should be a class on it, like as if it's a cost, a kind of having a knowledge of cost. And in my MBA, they say you are assigned a price for every operation. Let's say you're working 8 hours a day. How much do you think you are being paid for that 8 hours a day. Or if you have 5 or 10 staffs working an operation in a day, you made 100,000, whether 100,000 naira, 100,000 cedis. If you split it into 8 people that are working, how much does it translate into? How much is the operation per day? How much, this is the number of reagents you spend running a test. This is number of hours. This is number of manpower you spend in a day. And if those people were to be paid effectively, how much are you realizing? How much should they be paid for you to run such an operation? So that a lot of us jump from frying pan to fire, if I may call it. You might think of business is looking good or is doing so good, then you jump out and tomorrow you want to jump back in because you are not getting what you think you should be getting because of you don't have an in-depth cost analysis of what you are trying to, get into and that kind of stuff. So in addition to other things, you must understand the cost implication of what you're trying to do. If you're changing operation within the same environment. On the other hand, for those who are trying to migrate outside the country, outside having the basic knowledge of your books, I think it's a good how do I say, it will be necessary for you to have your TOEFL or test of English. As you know, English is one of the languages spoken almost. It's at least, let me say, English is a language of technology. I think I'm somehow right if I should say that. Most places around the world that the technology is being used, most technology is written in English. Most analyzers or equipment that I have seen, when they have it written in Germany or in French, or what, they always have a translation in English, showing how powerful English language is and how advantageous it is to have learned English, coming from our own side of the world and that kind of stuff, because you probably can operate in most countries of the world and that kind of stuff. So having an in-depth knowledge of your English or passing a standardized English test will help you, in anywhere you go if you're trying to migrate and that kind of stuff. So I know there are a bunch of English tests which are almost all required when you leave Nigeria or you leave Africa to get to any other country and that kind of. So if you have your TOEFL, another one they call OET, that's occupational English test, it will help you. And most places, because many a time, like Mr. Eze will say, you get out of your comfort zone, learn things that ordinarily you may not be required to learn, and that gives you an edge. It gives you an edge when you're now competing for a particular position with people who already have what you also have. You have the degree, they have a degree. You have experience, they have experience. Your employer might be looking at what else can that will help me make a decision on all these people that you have around. Assuming that you have, let me say, you have somebody coming from Pakistan or India who barely can speak English very well, and you happen to have a good command of the language. That gives you an edge. This is where competence is being regarded as a tool to hiring and that kind of stuff. So having a good knowledge of test of English, or at least a standardized English test certification, will go a long way in helping you, as you outside the whatever you qualified for and that kind of stuff. And also having proof of every training that you have been to. If it is an internship, please have a signed copy of your internship. If it is education, have a proof of your graduation, stamped and signed before you even start thinking of leaving the country and that kind of stuff. All these things will come handy when you really need it, because many a time they will require you say, oh, you have experience here, you worked here. They say you have to show. Many a time if you having a proof goes a long way to help them, make up their mind faster than when you don't have any proof that you have this training, or you have this certification and that kind of stuff. And letters of good standing, which requires having, let me say you have a boss at your job. You happen to come across and you work with him and that kind of stuff. If you can get a letter from him, or make sure that you keep in good touch with him, that anytime you call him, he can give you a reference letter or letter of good standing. That, hey, this guy works here, and nothing is better than word of mouth. All these places, many of our own part of the world, let's say Nigeria, sometimes it's somebody you get somebody from up there in the government that will, that introduce you to the person that will hire you. But many a time outside our country, when you get to the Western world, they want to see an expert in that region who said you diligently worked in this department. Do you understand what I'm trying to say? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
All right. So having to be in good terms with your HOD, your academic supervisor, your departmental supervisor is very necessary, because you'll be needing them someday. And if you can have a letter that is certified by them that you worked under them or you work with them, and let them say some good things about you as past, regarding your academic performance or your training performance, is very, very necessary. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. In addition to what you said, I think what academic preparation must intending migrants put in place now. For me, like, if I may expand this question, not only academic preparations, but other preparations too. One, as a medical laboratory scientist, you should know that you're dealing with human life, and the result you produce may determine the fate of that patient. So there are some preparations we have to make in our lives, and also in our work environment. We have to interpersonal relationship, leadership skills, what other negotiation skills, because being in medical laboratory science practice, you also have to, it's like being in an organization, you're working under somebody in the hospital, you may become a boss tomorrow. So you also have to have knowledge of businesses, how to manage business, being a leader, interpersonal skills, teamwork, how to integrate with your co-workers. Because if you're working in a team and the team is not united, I don't think you're going to produce a good result. So, and most things in the world are achieved by team. If you travel anywhere in the world, everything is team, and there's a leader of the team. And being a good follower too. So all these things are part of the things you have to imbibe when we are migrating. Like someone that is working in a private clinic and tomorrow you are going to lecture in the university. What are the academic preparations you have to make to migrate from working in a private clinic or working in a teaching hospital into the academic environment? So we have to put all these things in place and make sure that we are following the right steps and don't being professionals. We also need to participate in the professional body activities. In Nigeria, the medical laboratory science has a professional body where you have we have our AGM events and a lot of things. Mostly when you want to enter into bigger organizations or travel abroad, you will need a letter from them. So if you don't belong to or participate in those activities, nobody may give you letter to even get a better job. So these are the things we have to prepare for, and for if we are intending to migrate, unless we just want to remain where we are. There's no place to move. We just remain at that particular point, and there is no movement. Scientist Mary, I want you to throw some highlights in this area. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Like, let me just talk on the area migrating from maybe bench to lecturing. Like you said, there's some academic qualifications you need to have. I think that is my dream area too. So not just having your BSc, you still need to make up your master's degree and your PhD. You know, for bench, the masters and your PhD don't really count, but you need to have them for you to lecture in the university. So you need to equip yourself with all these certificates before you can migrate. So, like the boss said, migrating to any area of your choice, you also need to count the cost. Because, like now, I'm in a hospital. I'm also planning to migrate to lecturing. I won't just sit down there and look, or maybe enter any university and start lecturing. So the cost I've calculated then, and that was why I went for my master's and then went for my PhD, which I'm currently doing now. So you need to count the cost. What will it take me? How long will it take me? If I go now, will I really achieve my dream? So you need to put some things into consideration before making any move. So that is just the little I need to add this. Whatever decision you want to take, whether you are migrating from Nigeria to outside the country or you're migrating from your present place of work to your personal clinic or your personal establishment, there are some things you need to put in place. What is the actual goal you want to achieve? What are your dreams that you actually want to achieve? Or do you want just to do because others are doing it? Others are going outside the country, like what we are having, the situation we are having now in Nigeria. Many people are leaving. I'm telling you the truth that some are living with some things to achieve, some visions they have, but some are just going. Let's just go. Everybody is going out. Let's go. Let's just join them and go out. And I don't actually think that everybody that is going out is actually making it there too. So whatever decision you're taking, you need to have that goal that you want to achieve and then count the costs and the timing. How long will it take me? If I go by this time, will I achieve what I want to achieve? So I don't really have much to say on this, but calculate the cost, calculate the time, and then the duration of what you want to do. And if it lies in line with your dream or your aim. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you. I don't know if anybody has anything to say.
Oh yeah, on what you're saying, I really love the new dimension she brought into it. If you're leaving the country, what is your dream? What is your goal? And what do you hope to achieve? That still takes us back to, if you know actually what you're going for and you look at the timing, oh, there in the next 2 years, I should be working over there. Working as what? If you have spent 5 years or 6 years as strike may allow it, 7 years trying to graduate as a lab scientist, and you're going outside the country, you don't know what you're going to do there. You know, that's a chaos right there. That's catastrophic. So if you think you can, or if you have the option of going to country A or country B, and you now say, hey, in the country A, I can afford to use my license. The license you have spent a huge portion of your years, you know, studying, might be a better option than to go into country B, which might be a flashy country, but doesn't have nothing for you. And if you're going, you make the adequate preparation, put your documents together, put your papers together. If you have to improve yourself on a test of English, you put it together before you leave. And like as I was telling you guys, I said some of us that came out, some people have to abandon medical lab science because they were not prepared. They cannot get their transcript. They have nobody to help them, and they didn't put plans in place before they left. And they have to go and start a new profession and, you know, start studying. By the time they finish 4 or 5 years of study and that kind of stuff, you see how much of the waste you have done to your life by things that you could have arranged ahead of time. Another side of this thing that I want to, you know, bring into play is work ethics. You see, work ethics, I don't think we are really taught what work ethics. Many a time it has to do with where you have worked or how your parents, you know, raised you. By my own definition of work ethics is that if work starts at 8 o'clock, right, you are there at 7:45 or 7:50. At worst case scenario, 8:01, 8:02. If work is starting at 8 o'clock, that's work ethics right there. And when you get there, you're walking straight to your job. Nobody's watching you. Put your phone aside. Go straight to work. Get your job done. Ask questions, what you should do and what is required of you. Read the procedures. Read whatever that is left, you know, for you on the table. Read, you know, the company email, and if there's any project going on and that kind of stuff. That is what most places in this place look at. Many a time when you work on the foreign this in, they track what you're able to do in a day. You may not know because everybody has a login ID. You log into the computer, you know, someday they will pull it up and see how useful is this person to us. Is this somebody that if there's no work, they lazy around, or if there's no job, they find something and keep themselves busy. Review SOP. Try and find faults in the system, what they are doing already. They love it. They love for you to now say, oh, I think this thing shouldn't be here. Or I think this thing you wrote this way could have been better if you write it this way. It's better explains it without being taught and that kind of stuff. So having a good work ethics, as I said, come to work on time, you know, don't get distracted, do your job, and following due process. The due process is that, let me say, there's water spilled on the ground and you have a supervisor, you have a manager. If the due process is notify the supervisor first. For the fact you're in good relationship with the manager doesn't make you jump the supervisor and go to the manager. You go through the due process. He might not be the best of your friend, but you have to follow due process. That's work ethics. And if you have to, you know, reduce waste, that is good work ethics. The one I said the matter they watch most from the part of the world where I am is time. If you know how to utilize your time very well, without waste, because they look at all those things as waste. Coming at the right time, you know, don't get distracted, go straight to your job. And when you take your lunch or break, come back. And if the lunch says 30 minutes, please make it 30 minutes. Don't make it 29 minutes. Don't make it 35 minutes. If it says 30 minutes, act like your life depends on it. As soon as you're clocking out or you're going out for lunch, set your alarm clock 2 minutes to the time or 5 minutes to the time. So when the alarm goes up, you're already heading back into the office. Even if you are just a block away, head back into the office so that you don't waste any of your time and everything. The next person after you can actually take their own lunch too. So good work ethics. I'm sure there's good work ethics can be defined, in different aspects or different ways. But to cut it short, I think showing up for work on time, doing your job, taking your break at the right time and coming back on time, and leaving when you are supposed to leave. Follow due process in reporting, right or wrong, and respect and established leadership. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Let's move on to the next question, which is how do you handle cultural and language barriers in your day-to-day work as an international medical laboratory scientist? In this situation, we may be working in environments where you have people from different backgrounds, cultural differences. We have in Nigeria, there are different tribes with different cultures. People from Ghana and Nigeria, different cultures. Then you meet some Asians, Russians, Europeans, different culture, diverse. How do you handle these cultural and language barriers? Because when there is a clash of culture, there is a problem in a team. So, Evans, I don't know, you have met a lot of people from Africa, Asia, Chinese, uh, Japanese, and all whatnot. How are you able to handle all these things? And sometimes you have people that don't even speak English, some people that speak Spanish or Arabic. How do you handle all these cultural and language barriers? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Program Coordinator. Um, Cultural barriers is a huge part of workplace experience that you should learn how to handle. Many a time we think we do things out of the way we think things should be, or we comment on what we feel should be said, or we think we are being bold. It doesn't work that way. People might read it differently from what you meant, and there might not be time for you to explain. So, as a guideline, as I said initially, following due process is a good place to start. Secondly, too, using your words, using your writing skills, right, is a very important asset. For example, you have all kinds of people working with you, and some of them can barely speak the accents that you can understand, or they can barely understand your accent, and you guys will be going back and forth, and sometimes it sounds rude when people say, oh, I don't understand you. Can you repeat it? Well, somebody asked me one time, are you speaking English? But all these tools could be avoided if you can send a decent mail, because when you communicate, when you write, send out an email, you do not facial expressions are not in the email, and it could be proven that someone is being rude to you by the way they respond or not. And also your own emotions may not be expressed in your email. You go straight to the point that you're stressing. So if you can use your writing skills, that will go a long way in helping you, maintain your position or maintain your stand in a particular organization without, stepping on other people's toes, on having other people step on your own toes, and making you comfortable at your job. Also, when you talk about social barriers and that kind of stuff, there's a lot plays into it. When you have the Indians, you have the Chinese, and the other Asians, and some of the. So, why I still maintain using your writing skill is that I've come across a particular Asian tribe whereby if you look at them straight into the eyes while talking to them, they feel threatened, and it's allowed. They will tell you, the management, that you are threatening them, and they will take it seriously. So looking people straight into the eyes, like we always do in West Africa, you look at somebody and you pull out a finger and you say something pointing at people. Some of them is a huge threat. And you could easily get fired for that. You don't pull up a finger, you don't point at people. Why saying things? You use your words, being careful, and make sure that they understand you. If they have any question before you leave, if you're passing an instruction to someone. So if you were to use your words, your writing skills, you probably have to say, "Oh, Mr. John, did you get my email? I would love you to, respond to my email before the end of the day. Thank you." Do you understand? So at that point, you have not gone beyond what you are required to do. You've passed out all the instructions on your email, and the only thing you've requested is for them to now respond to your email. So if they were to respond to your email, they will kind of, state it the way it is. Also, when you come to cultural barriers, what else can I remember? Cultural barriers, and some people like to work in groups, like let's say the Filipinos. They function better when they work in groups, and in group of all their Filipinos together. And you might think that it's a conspiracy going on. Somehow, they don't function individually on their own. I know back in West Africa, we are taught to be independent on a lot of things. Those ones are taught to cling together, if I may say, for most part, not all of them, when they are working. So you have to, understand that and make do with that kind of arrangement when you are working with that group of people. So if you're working with them and you have multiple assignments for different people, you might just assign them and give them time to finish their job. They probably have to do one together and move to the next one, and all move to the next one together. Unlike when you assign somebody something and I say, okay, you do this and you do this and you do that, they might not be comfortable with that and that kind of stuff. It's not that they're not going to do it, but then they function better when they are all together doing their job. That's one of the things that you have to watch out for when you are looking at cultural barriers in an international setting. A lot of people do not function the way we know ourselves to work or function in our own society. Like I said, using your writing skills to communicate is a very good place to start. Putting down your fingers when you're talking to other people and just using your words is another good one. And learning how people operate, those that function individually and those that function as a team, is another way to, observe the cultural barriers that might exist between you and other people. I don't know if I have answered some of your questions.
Yes. Yes. I don't know if there is any other contribution because Mr. Eze, you can say something about it since you have found yourself in the midst of a lot of people that are basically not from your tribe, and there are cultural differences. We don't want to talk about religion here, but we're talking about culture. So, what do you have to say about this?
I think I will go in tandem with what our boss said. I'm still in Nigeria, so most of the cultures are something we're already accustomed with. So I will stick with what our boss has said. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Um, if you look deep into this cultural and language barriers, that means there are a lot of things we have to do on our own to fit in some areas. You know, I can remember sometime in Nigeria, you know, you can be walking along the road, somebody can greet you or say, ask you a question, where is this place or what direction? Or we can join in an argument that has nothing to do with us. But going to somewhere in Europe, you will see people minding their businesses. You can't even ask somebody which direction is this or which direction is that. So it also comes in workplace, whereby in the lab here you can ask questions. So please, can you help me do this? I want to eat now, or let me answer this call. But when you're working with people from different parts of the world, if you're asking them such questions, they say, what is happening to you? Uh, don't you know your work or your job? And they may be offended by that. So there are a lot of things we have to put in place. Like you said, we have to go out of our comfort zone to actually know what is required of us to function internationally. Even when we are in Nigeria here, you may have some team come from another part of the world. Like I worked in an environment whereby people came from UK, US, South Africa, and we are in the same team. I can't run away from it. I have to adapt and find a way to work with them. Why should I run? So there are a lot of things we have to put in place in order to also keep moving in our work. Thank you. Let's move on to the next question. That should be the last question for the day. It says, can you share any personal experiences that highlight the rewards and fulfillment of working as an international medical laboratory scientist? Currently, Sir Evans, you have to detail us on this. Then after this, you give us the messages that we are sent in by our presenter that's supposed to join us from Australia and the UAE and Asia that we are not able to meet up with because of the timing, and also the woman from Canada. Okay, Sir Evans, can you help us?
All right. Thank you, Mr. Program Coordinator. Your question is if I can share personal experiences that highlighted the rewards and fulfillment of working as an international medical lab scientist. All right. So I had an experience when I first got here that made me very proud of my background, Nigeria, and West Africa or whatever, and our system of education. People might think that, oh, the Western world is way ahead of us, and yes, in starting in technology. But when it comes to brain power, I think we are still there, or we are even ahead because we push ourselves over and beyond to get things get some knowledge, even when we don't have the tools to help us on, keep remembering. So I walked into a lab, and they were trying to do some clinical chemists here, or chemical pathologists will understand what I'm talking about, when they're trying to load a patient with some glucose or a form of sugar as a tolerance test, to check how much the person can handle, or how the way in which they handle it. It's a way of, thinking. You say it's a tolerance test, it could be dextrose, it could be glucose, or whatever. So, here, computer and everything does everything, and you just push and it will give you the value or everything is already pre-packed. The patient was supposed to give in a particular quantity of glucose or dextrose, or if I could remember. And because the doctor wrote, because it was a child, per kg body weight, certain amount per kg body weight. Meanwhile, the textbook here, everything says in pounds. They weigh in pounds here. But probably the doctor might be a foreign doctor, and his request was give this to this child, or give this quantity to this child per kilogram body weight. The whole lab got confused, converting pounds, kg, and whatever into, and coming up with a value for the child, because by the basic value, system they have, they punch in the amount of sugar being given to a child is greater than what you can give an adult. So the manager said, that is not right. There's no way the child will be loaded more than an adult. That means there's something wrong. They now found out that they are dealing with kg body weight. Meanwhile, they are measuring in pounds. So I happened to walk in, and while they were having this issue, they had about 6 or 7 of them working in that shift, and none of them could come up with the right amount that should be given. So when I walked in, I was on a PM shift. I think I was supposed to resume either 11 or 12. So they called upon me, say, hey, you must have come, you are younger. Then I was younger. This thing, you may have a better knowledge of what is going on. I looked at it. As at then, they were looking at me like, oh, this graduate from Africa, what does he know? And he still needs to be taught. So they put me a little below what I should be earning. You are earning here that we still need to train you for this long before you can catch up. In as much as we know you already have the license, they won't place you where your peers are. So they put me below. But to prove a point, I took whatever they gave me so I could get into the system first. So I sat down, I said, I didn't have to tell them that this is ordinary, my secondary school chemistry, conversion from kilogram to pounds, or, putting everything into one unit and then doing the calculation and coming up with the right value. Anyway, to cut the story short, my calculation was written out as part of the lab procedure and putting it to their manual, because they never had that kind of situation before. Myself have not had it, but because of our basic knowledge of chemistry being taught properly in Nigeria, that we have to use manual method to do our concentration other than punching numbers into the computer and it giving us the right result. So I was able to do the calculation by my basic understanding of weight and concentration in chemistry, and put it forward, which now they have to put into their procedure. And they will remain grateful that day, because the doctor was calling, why is the patient not loaded with glucose? Why is the patient wasting time? Why is this thing? Because he has to be done fasting and that kind of stuff. So I came in and I saved the day. And my manager walked in and said, to me, say, I have a different notion of you as from today. And not long after that, I was moved up to where I'm supposed to be in terms of salary, because they think I have something to offer. So I'm sharing that as part of my personal experience, the reward that the fulfillment of my destiny. So coming from Africa, you have a lot to offer. And when it comes to understanding the basic principles, the gold standard, as Mr. Eze will say, the gold standard. We have most of the gold standard in us, with us, coming from Africa, because we did it manually. And the computerized portion of it is the easier part. So when you have the gold standard, you can translate it if you are keen on what you're doing. If you're keen on or trying to understand whatever is happening with the computers, you can never be wrong if you understand the basic principles. All right. I think I've talked long enough, right?
Okay, thank you so much. I don't know if there is any further contribution at this point. We can take one or two contributions. I don't know. We have about 20 participants here, and we are all listening, but we can't say anything. Okay, and nevertheless, Sir, can you give us the inputs from some of those our presenters that we are unable to meet up with the timing? Some of them are sleeping right now.
I know. Okay. As I would say, the Canadian counterpart. If I may tell you what she said she had to go study nursing because Canada was making it almost impossible for her to qualify with her current degree. They wanted her to go back to school for 2 years, then have the equivalent of their own degree before she can be allowed to write the board exam in Canada. So she thought about, instead of going back to school for 2 years, she can as well use 3 years to go study nursing and not worry about going back to, we'll study the nursing and pick up at a different career from there. That's her story. I've not had anybody in Canada practicing except those lecturing. That's why I still feel that the best option to get to Canada is, if you get in as a master's or PhD student. That's on that side. Then the guy from Australia, which I know they are, I don't know how many hours away from us they are, so they may have they are at a different time zone and couldn't join this system. Said the practicing license in Nigeria is practically almost the same as in Australia. Actually, in Australia, people that read biological sciences can work in the lab. People that read zoology can work in the lab and that kind of stuff. They are not quite strict with the lab practice, so long as they teach you what to do in the lab. His license in Nigeria is admissible. In Canada, the AIMLS is also being used in Canada. So
is it Canada or Australia?
In Australia. So the only issue they have is that having a clear path which will give you which can give you a visa to come to Australia is not defined through medical lab science. But if you happen to find yourself in Australia, you don't have much to worry about because you are gonna have your license work for you, or you can actually use your license to work in Canada, in Australia, with AIMLS, BMLS, BSc, in medical lab science or any of the biological science programs and that kind of stuff. So that's a good thing for most people who may want to relocate to Australia, I believe.
Yeah, what about from Dubai?
Yeah, Dubai actually said they have their own license in Dubai. The I'm gonna send the this thing for those who may want to go to Dubai. They have a chart. I have a website link that will show you how you can evaluate your results, and but then the exam has to be taken right there in Dubai. They don't have a training exam center outside Dubai, but they accept your degree from Nigeria. Dubai accepts a degree from Nigeria, but you have to write their board exam. So if you are relocating to Dubai, put your documents together right. As they said, have your transcripts evaluated, have their copies, have your letters of starting graduating without any experience. Graduating from Nigerian school qualifies you to get a job or qualifies you to write their board exam in Dubai. And it's not something too difficult. So most people who graduated as medical lab scientists who went there and wrote the exam usually passes. It's not way difficult. And but good thing they don't require you to go back to school. You write their board exam and pass, and then you can now practice in Dubai. So Dubai is not a difficult one to handle if you already have a visa getting into Dubai that will allow you to work. Okay. Another thing I want to bring up to this is what one of my colleagues said. In everything you do in this profession, please try and find a platform, a social media where you will learn from each other, like this one, where you get updated information that you join yourself to so that you can be current. You can have resource, you can have information. You can come to your platform and ask, hey, I'm trying to write this exam. Anybody with any information on this exam or what book I should study and that kind of stuff. You come across people that went through that challenge and they're able to, actually point direction of, hey, don't go this side, go this direction. This is actually where you should be heading to. And that will help you not to waste any time, not to waste any part of your life trying to get to your destination, because everything has to do with time, so you can get there on time without wasting a lot of your money and your precious time that you require to get to your destination. Okay, I think that's about it.
Okay, thank you, Scientist Evans. We have come to the end of this webinar. I don't know if anyone has anything to say. This is the closing remarks we are on. Anyone has any question, any contribution, or any comment to make?
I have a question.
Okay, continue.
Richard, I'm talking from Nigeria. Most of the times when you're applying for jobs or these certification exams, they will be asking you about your experiences, if you have experience, and most of the times, even school, asking you the courses, your level of education, maybe masters. And for some people that have maybe two master's degree, or so they'll be asking you to write all of them down and then get letters from those people. And they find out that my question is, because it makes it so cumbersome before you go to your different schools you study to get those letters, to be cumbersome, and this stress equally to convince those people to do those things. So my question then is, you have like two masters in different fields. Is it not better to use only one, that you have somebody to attest for you faster? This is going to give you the same result than trying to show that you have 3 masters, 4 masters, going to different places to get attestation letters from all those your lecturers or supervisors, which will most of the time they will see that we are disturbing them. So in such situations, what do you do? Is it better to use just one and present to them, or to use still go and get all those attestations from the different places, even if it's 4 masters, get all of them? Then my second question is, in terms of experiences, if you have worked in different places and it's hard to get letters of attestation that you have worked with them, experiences, so can you just use one or two to cover up, or must you go and get all of them to show that you have much? Because I find that it takes time. Takes time. Like for me, I've been applying for HCPC job in UK for long now, and it has been proven to be somehow difficult. Each time they will tell you not successful, not successful. What could be the reason? So just need an advice, sort of, on way forward in applying to all these applications and for work. Thank you.
All right, my friend. You see, for people with this kind of situation, is one of the reasons why we had this webinar. If you check why, I don't know if you were listening when I said it's always good to have a letters of good standing as you are completing any particular task. Let me say you worked in this company, or you studied here. As you are leaving the place, if you can get a certified letter that I did this, and I was able to, do this. These are the level of my experience, or worked on this, worked on that, and this from this time to this time. If you can get it at the time you are graduating from that place, or at the end of this, so that's why many a time, if you attend some seminars, they will give you certificates at the end that you attended this seminar. Do you understand? So such things will also apply to if you had a master's or letter of attestation at the end of the master's. If you can get a letter of attestation, even when you don't need it, that you did this and you did that. This is one of the reasons why we had this, is so that, because many times when you think about all what you have to go and get, you get discouraged. I have been in your shoes before. And secondly, if you have to go here, it's cost intensive. I mean, it's intensive when it comes to your pocket, that you have to, sometimes you go, you don't see the person. Sometimes you go, whoever was there is no longer there. And it's difficult to come and start disturbing somebody and say, oh, I need this from you, I need that from you, and that kind of, I understand. But let me tell you one thing you should know. I'm not asking you to avoid some maybe and just state only one. They want you to account for your time. Let's say you graduated in 2015. So, and this is 2023. If you said you did your master's 2016 to 2017, or 2016 to 2019, they want to know what you're doing from 2019 to 2023. If you said you have not been doing anything, they will think that you are rusty. You have not been in that field. You have been somewhere else, or you probably could have even been in prison. Do you understand? So what were you doing within that time? So if you have to say something or this, you better make sure that your time, from the time you are telling them to the time you are talking to them, is accounted for. Or you graduated from here and you are working from this time to that time that you are applying to them. They want to know, what were you doing from this time to this time? You say, oh, from this time to this time, I don't have a job. From this time to this time, you are shooting yourself in the leg. So you have to package yourself to account for your time. If you can, get letters of good standing anytime you are leaving a job. Let's say you went to Ghana, you did a job for 6 months and you want it to count. Please, before you leave Ghana, get a letter that will qualify that you did this till so time. Something that they could ask. You may not even need it at the point you are getting that letter. Okay. Stamped, certified, somebody's signature and stamp on it that you did this so and just like people that went for training. Mr. Okafor was at AGM meeting for the 2024, or was in this social training for this for that went for this month, and he was trained on this, and this and that. Please get an elaborate letter that is stamped and signed. If not signed, stamped. If possible, with letter-headed paper. So that when you ask you for, because all these things they will ask for it, when they ask you, you'll be able to account for the degree that you went for, not only presenting the certificate, you have this document. And if you are leaving Nigeria and you're going to a country, you don't know what they will require of you, make arrangements on your transcript. If you can get your transcript sent to an evaluating agency, a standard evaluation agency, let them evaluate, because when they evaluate your transcript many times, you still have 2 years or more to 5 years to write them to say, oh, I need you to send this, my evaluated transcript, to this school in Australia. I need you to send this into this school in Canada. The agency will send it. If you were in Nigeria and you even applying to those schools, you can even have them send a transcript, the evaluated transcript, to schools. There was a time I sent to almost 5 schools. At the end, I didn't go to any of them, but they were the schools I applied to. One, they said they have received my application. I'll ask by the evaluating agency to send the transcript to them. So they have it on file. And once they have it on file, it will never expire with them. I said, bad as a bad, I will attend one of these. At the end of the day, the only one I went to was writing the one that they sent for the board, the one I used for writing my board exam. But I tried as much as possible. Instead of going back and forth, I applied to this one. I will send the transcript, or I will go for evaluation, and I go. So that same evaluated transcript. So that's why when you're doing your evaluation, you choose the one that's agency that is widely accepted, so you can have it sent anywhere around the world. And for the fact that you evaluated it this year doesn't mean you can't use it in 2 years' time. They always have a record of your evaluated copy, and which they can send electronically to whichever school around the world or whichever establishment around the world that you may want to attend. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. You did very, very well. In fact, it's very, very explanatory. But I want to ask again. If like when I did HCPC, there's most of this letter of attestation I got from my work, my HOD, my schools. Now, if I'm about to do another one like ASCP for US, do I need to? And I know they will still ask me to go and get those attestation. Can I use the same attestation I use for HPC to that one?
Why not? Why not?
The address is addressed to HCPC. So can I still, as it's addressed to HCPC, just carry like that and give to them in HCPC, ASCP?
Okay, Mr.
Huh?
Let me attend to his question. Like for ASCP, it's just a simple process. Like from your explanation now, it's obvious you're no longer using a training documentation form, but an experience documentation form. Okay. Yeah. So the only attestation you will need is just for the facility that you have experience with, to just put it on a letterhead that they were the one that filled your experience documentation form, and that's all. You may not need all those attestation letters from every other places. So once they can fill the experience documentation form for you, and then put it in a letterheaded paper that they are the one that filled the person that filled it, that is putting it in the letterheaded paper of the facility, that they are the one that filled the experience documentation form. I think that's all you need. If it is a training documentation form, then your HOD in school would still write the same thing on department letterheaded paper, and then it will pass. So I don't think you need all those attestation letters from your places.
Okay, I can't use the one I use because of the address to go for all of them.
Yes.
No, training documentation and experience documentation form have their own ASCP form.
I know they have different forms, and I have all of them, but they are bearing one address. So if I'm about to go for like Australia certification or that of Canada or here, I will not use that same one because it's bearing HCPC that is in London. That's what I'm trying to say. Can I still use that same one?
Okay, let me come in here. What Mr. Eze is trying to tell you that if you are trying to write ASCPI, right?
Yes.
If you go online, they already have a form that is experience documentation form. They already have it. So what if you print it out? If you print it out, your HOD needs to sign write in maybe from this date to this date,
Okay.
and now give you a letter of what do they call it? What do they call that letter? Backing up that he's the one that filled this form. Do you understand? That
Okay.
letter might just be 3 sentences. In
Okay.
our by next weekend, I might give you a copy of someone, a copy of something that ASCP that they used. You understand? And
Yes.
the attached letter saying that, let me say, I'm Mr. Evans, I was your HOD. The ASCP form, I completed it when you were working with me. Your experience form, right?
Yes.
Basically, what I put there is the dates. Then I'll
Mm.
now have an attached this from Advanced Biomedics Learning. This is to certify that blah blah blah, that I'm the one that signed this thing. Do you understand?
Oh yeah. Okay.
And I will attach it, and you are good to go.
All right.
So they have already. So you don't need to go and bring the one that's addressed to any other person. You just have to your HOD writing the dates which you did your training or which you had experience with, and then have a note saying that he is the one that signed this letter. I think having a copy up here, right, of someone, I will just remove the person's name, someone that just uses his own with ASCP. Do you understand? Having a copy will now, break down the whole distance and, make you understand the whole thing. That how simple it is. As Mr. Eze is explaining this to you, ASCP made it very simple. So you don't need to jump around trying to get a letter from this person and that person. So that's how I feel it is.
Thank
Okay,
you.
thank you. If you go to the platform, I have reposted the documentations required for ASCPI. The letter from the HOD or something is called letter of authenticity.
Exactly.
Then, but what I want to add here is that when you're applying for ASCPI, look at the requirements. If you are applying for HCPC or something, look for the requirements of that one. So in each one, try to follow the requirements of anyone you're applying. And to help you in this situation, you can draw up your updated CV or resume. That will help you to know the timing, and they want to know whether there's a vacuum in your level of knowledge. So don't try to create a vacuum. When you finish secondary school, you are in the university. From university, you are working here. Even if you don't have job for 2 or 3 years, there must be 1 or 2 programs you have been doing to occupy yourself. So they don't want to say there is a vacuum in your life or you have lost the trend. So don't create such a scenario. So let's try to create a very good CV or resume. It will help us to align all our qualifications and everything we had in life up to date. I will be looking at it as, okay, this point, I need this letter or I need this document to do this. And most importantly, like we have not talked about it here, most times we employees don't leave our jobs in good notes. And that's one of the big problems we have. Maybe some of them will just resign abruptly. Yes, in work environments, there are a lot of politics going on. People want to get you annoyed. They want to get you frustrated. But being a professional, you have to be matured and stay from the beginning of your job to the end. And also ask for these letters. Or even if when you leave, you can come back and ask for these letters. But when we leave with annoyance or just resign or have some quarrel or those kind of things, we may not have the mind to come back to that facility again to ask for a letter. Or we quarreled with our HOD, quarreled with our leader, quarreled with our manager, we just left the job. Yes, they can get you annoyed, but think of the future. What are you aiming at? When you know that you are going somewhere in the future and you will be needing them at some point in time, because most of those managers know when they look at you, they know your future. They know that, oh, this person will need a letter from us. He will need some authentication from us. He will need some valuable documents from us. Let's frustrate him, let him run away. And when you run away, some point in your life, you may look back and you need something from that organization. So let's try to comport ourselves in our work environment so that when we leave school, we can still have somebody there that can help us do some things. If we leave our work, we can still have somebody there help us do our things. But what we are looking at is our future.
All right.
Yeah. Thank you. I don't know if there is any other contribution or question.
Please, Isaac, this is Isaac from Ghana. I want some clarification with regards to the Canada license. Just yesterday, I visited one agency here in Ghana who is claiming he has a school in Canada, and the school offer you 2 years to just go through their form of training, and after the training, you write their licensure exams. Then you'll be able to practice over there. But you just made mention of our dear lady who is already there, very confused, don't know what to do, and trying to even switch from the medical laboratory side to nursing. I want a bit clarification there.
Oh yeah. For all I know, I am not saying that I know everything. Do you understand?
Yes, please.
So, for all I know that Canada is a little bit tough on whom they accept into their profession. Some nursing degrees, America is full of private schools. In America, are not even accepted in Canada. A lot of people with degrees all over the world, it's not like they have their own system. It's not like their own system probably is better, but they have their own system that they want people to adapt to. Do you understand? So at the end of the day, they usually don't make it easy for you to, get into their system if you didn't school in Canada. That's what I know. If somebody that has a school in Canada, I don't know if it's a school of medical lab or a school, then if I may advise you, go for review, have a testimony of somebody that already went through that system.
Okay.
Let me give you another example. I have a friend who lives in Canada. The wife studied nursing in Nigeria, right? The woman had to go back and study nursing in Canada to be allowed to practice in Canada because of one simple mistake. Her name is Fumi, Fumi, right? Either in one of her certificates, it was written Fumy. In United States, what she needed to do was to go to a court, even if it's in Nigeria, and get, how do I call it, or go to a probate and get, how do you call it? Affidavit that this Fumi here is the same Fumi here. You are just saying, I'm just attesting, hold me responsible. I'm telling you that this Fumi here is this, or under the law court. It's like, how do you say it in court? What I'm saying is the truth. Do you understand? and then he will be allowed to write the exam. That's the American system. Go and get an attestation stamped. It doesn't even do it by a judge or a magistrate. Here, you can do it by a ordinary notary public. They notarize it and stamp it that this person is, and you bring a proof, maybe your full name and this, and the person documented that this is your full name, this is your address, this is your ID card. You came here, you said this thing is this thing, and you're allowed to go and challenge the board. They refuse this thing. Canada is a kind of government system. It's not like it's not purely capitalism. They said they will listen to. She waited for 3 years, every time back and forth. One time I was in Nigeria, I followed the guy to the nursing council. If there's anything else they're going to do, that the mistake was from them, he got all kinds of letter. At the end of the day, after 3 years, she was still not, I'm not saying giving license to work. She was not allowed to even write the board exam because they didn't feel that she was the one that had that education, that probably another person named Fumi was the one that went to school. Then the another Fumi is the one that's trying to come and write and claim the name and write this thing. I think it's a joke. After 3 years, she had to go back to school. That is how tough I know an Indian system can be. This is somebody that's already read nursing, the same profession. Then you're talking about somebody that read medical lab. I know, like my classmates that read nursing, all the experience and bench this thing that I got from Nigeria when I was preparing for my own, showing that had the experience form that stated all what I did in chemistry, or what I did in hematology, in blood bank, and whatever. I gave her a sample, sent it back to the Nigeria, have them put it in this format, and the same thing that allowed me to practice, allowed me to write the board exam here. When she took it to Canada, prepared her own documents that way from Nigeria, sent it back from where she did her internship. I know she did her internship. I know where she did her internship. They refused her still. They always have one or two things they'll ask for. And you may stay 6 months before you hear from them. Eventually, after years, she got frustrated because it looks like there's never an end to it. Don't get me wrong. What I'm trying to say is that if the person is already living there, if you are not comfortable with the information they are giving you, that they will train you here, they will get you a job there as a medical lab scientist, I will advise you, if a lot of money is involved, have a testimony of who has been successful.
All right. Thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome.
Okay, thank you. I don't know if there's anybody that has anything to say. I saw Dr. Barbara just joined. Dr. Barbara, can you say hello to us?
Is there hello? You said
Hello.
you can have any okay. Is it the doctor talking? Okay, I've said is there any way we can have the link on registration to all these boards, both the one of US, Australia, and Co, so that, and if possible, the total amount of money that is required for all of them. But especially the links, so that we can go through all of them and know which one is easier for us, the best pathway.
Yeah,
Okay.
to the best. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, yeah. As we go on in the program, I think most of those things will come up. And also do good to bring your friends and colleagues to the platform so that when we have more of this interaction, we also have more knowledge to share. So Evans, I don't know whether you have anything to say.
Oh yeah. The much I have to say is that as much information we have or we know that is out there, we'll try and put it on the platform for people to digest and now make their decision and on what to do and that kind of stuff. So if you are trying to make choices or look at all the information out there and now know the direction you have to go, you will have all the needed
resource to come to a conclusion on what you want to do. And also, I also want to say by next weekend we are going to bring up how to the ASCP for the application. We are going to do a little presentation or a little video present on how to complete the forms. And how the forms look like, because a lot of people don't know how the form looks like. A lot of people don't know how to complete the forms. And also that next week, we're also going to, because of what the fuel is doing in Nigeria, we also wanted to give a promotion for people who would want to register with us and have all our assistants from completion of the form to, having a review class. We'll have to have a promotion and give some discounts to reduce the burden people are going through based because of the petroleum or the scarcity of the fuel in the system. So I want to watch out for next weekend and see what we have for you in addition to the links that will be available. Okay.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. At this point, I want to thank everyone for coming and also for the contributions that have been made. I want to thank Scientist Mary for her inputs, Scientist Eze, Evans, Mr. Isaac from Ghana, Mr. Richard, and also the listeners. So on the screen, you can see our WhatsApp QR code and also the Telegram QR code, our Twitter, website, YouTube, and WhatsApp numbers. So you can do good in bringing your friends and colleagues on board. We have a lot to deliver. So presently, Evans Biomedics is working out with some other professional bodies to deliver more to our medical lab scientists, both in Nigeria and the West African region, so that we will be at the same pace with anybody working anywhere in the world. So don't get us confused when we say international. When we say international, we are not trying to bring down our local practice. No, we are trying to say that when you're international, you can work in Nigeria, work in Ghana, and also work in the US or anywhere. So the knowledge, the skills, and everything you need, you just have all of them there so that you can move to any part of the world. So I am Mr. Humphrey, and I want to thank everyone for coming. And also, I wish everyone a very good day and also a happy new month of July. And also, try as much as possible to spread the message. Advanced Biomedics Learning has a lot for us, and most of them are for free. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, bye.
Bye. Thank you.
Yeah, bye.
The video should be posted in the wall or in the WhatsApp group.
Yes.